Joining us to discuss this case is attorney Jeremy Eldridge. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you.
Many people are questioning what happened here. How do you balance giving someone a second chance, but also try to prevent something serious like this?
Well, when you talk about giving second chances, what your first line of defense has to be with people getting out of jail is getting them a job. If we don't want recidivism or return to the criminal justice system, we have to make sure that people getting out of jail that are on probation or parole, that they have second chances, that they have employment so that they have a means to provide for their family and for themselves. However, when you have a violent crime committed like this, the question then becomes, should the employer have hired them in the first place? Getting back to the check the box legislation in 2014, which required employers in Baltimore City to make conditional offers of employment sans knowledge of the criminal record. And that's that interesting intersection that we have now.
What else would you say needs to change in the system? I mean, do they need to do more checks, like once someone's hired too, more progress checks?
Well, I think the first thing that the city agencies or state agencies or even private employers have to do is if you're going to put somebody with a violent criminal record in your employ, you have to make sure that certain policies are in place, not only to protect other employees, but to protect that individual. So for instance, we had a murder at the DPW water treatment facility. You can't expect that. That was a random criminal act. Here, this individual is using a work truck, a city-owned work truck to commit a crime. So you have to ask what policy was in place. Were they tracking the vehicle? Why did he have access to the vehicle? It's beyond his criminal record, but somebody without a criminal record could have engaged in the same behavior. So the onus really has to go back to DPW to say at this point, well, why did he have the truck at that point in the first place? And why didn't anyone stand in the way of him committing this crime?
Okay. I also want to ask you about Baltimore County because background checks are under scrutiny there as well. The Inspector General just released a report about possible security risks. She found many employees either didn't have a background check, they were hired before the county policy, or that there's a backlog. And she found almost 100 financial issues or criminal charges. You said you believe that the county's policies are what's key to look at here.
100%. When you look at what the Inspector General Kelly Madigan produced in her report, you're looking at what looks like hundreds of employees that have either serious financial issues or criminal backgrounds. The first thing is you have to rerun criminal records. If you have a security clearance, you should rerun criminal records. That shouldn't preclude someone who's gotten in trouble, maybe a low-level DUI, from maintaining their employment. But if you have someone that's writing checks or has a fiduciary duty in county government, and that person has been charged and found guilty of embezzlement, they probably shouldn't be the treasurer for that respective agency. So it's really just a matter of making sure that the person with this conviction isn't doing this particular job, and then I think we'll have less of these situations to worry about.
All right. We've been speaking this morning with attorney Jeremy Eldridge. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
Baltimore City Schools following the lead of nearby Baltimore County Public Schools, announcing that some, not all, but some of their schools will temporarily return to virtual learning.
This comes as cases of the virus continue to surge, and the debate over in-person or virtual learning is just heating up. Amy Simpson is live tonight. She's been following the developments all school year. Amy?
Jeff, Mary, 59 schools in Baltimore City are learning from home right now, at least temporarily. And most of the students impacted are elementary or middle schoolers.
More than a third of the 155 schools in Baltimore City are back to virtual learning today. The district posting a list of 59 schools to temporarily shift to a virtual model, as the path forward for schools during this COVID surge remains a split topic.
We cannot, and our young people cannot afford any more learning loss from going back to virtual learning.
Last week, Baltimore Mayor Brandon Scott wading into the conversation.
Shifts to virtual learning have negatively impacted our students' social, emotional well-being, academic outcomes, and deepened racial and social economic inequities here in Baltimore.
Just days after Governor Larry Hogan
absolutely, I think kids need to be in school.
Also weighed in on how to handle schools.
I think we've all seen the incredible damage that has been caused by, in some cases, people doing remote learning for over a year.
In neighboring Baltimore County, the public schools are closed both today and tomorrow. Independent workdays for students, while teachers prep for possible virtual learning at their schools in the coming weeks. The Baltimore County Teachers Union telling Fox 45 News last week staffing levels are the crisis point inside many school buildings right now.
We want to be in school with our students, that we understand and agree that in-person instruction is the most important thing when it can be done safely and effectively. And that's really not what's happening at this moment.
These shifts to virtual learning, regardless of length or the amount of advance notice, are leaving some parents and families in the lurch, forced to adapt and make other plans for childcare or at work. On social media, one person saying they sure don't give a lot of notice for parents to make arrangements. Another saying, I think they need to do whatever they can to protect the kids, teachers, and staff. If it means going virtual for a time, then so be it.
And tonight, Baltimore City Schools tells me that those 59 buildings listed for virtual learning will remain virtual all week long. They also tell me the decision about which schools switch to virtual is based on having adequate staff and also the ability to do COVID testing. Reporting live in Baltimore tonight, Amy Simpson, Fox 45 News.
Is once again calling on state lawmakers to do something right now to address the crime crisis in Baltimore.
Our Mackenzie Frost joins us live tonight with what the governor is now calling for. Mackenzie.
Yeah, Jeff, Mary, it's no surprise Governor Larry Hogan is calling on lawmakers inside the State House to pass his 2 anti-crime plans that he has introduced year after year without success. The governor is also calling for more money to be invested in law enforcement agencies across the state, and he wants a tracking system of all open warrants in Baltimore City starting right now.
Good afternoon.
Governor Larry Hogan zeroing in on the violent criminals.
One of the reasons we have too many repeat violent offenders is that too many violent criminals are not prosecuted and put in jail.
Calling on the Department of Parole and Probation to start tracking all open warrants starting in high crime areas of Baltimore City.
Effective immediately.
It's unclear just how many open warrants there are in Baltimore. This move comes after criticism from some lawmakers who argue Hogan's Parole and Probation Department could step up. Meantime,
We will once again be introducing emergency crime legislation.
As lawmakers come back to Annapolis Wednesday for session, the governor pushing his anti-crime legislative agenda again that is yet to become a reality, looking to the same lawmakers who say he could be doing more too.
Yeah, people say, well, why don't you just give up because they didn't pass it before? We're not going to, because this is our main job, is to keep our constituents safe, and that job's not getting done.
This time expanding his scope, looking for support.
Do you think that the city council and the mayor, should they be pressuring or talking and lobbying the city delegation?
Absolutely.
To back this?
I'd like to get the support of the city council. This is really not just a Baltimore City issue. These, as Brad's question, Prince George's County's got some rising crime as well. But it is the place where we have the most murders and the most violent crime. And if we can't get the city leaders to show support, it makes it much more difficult for me to convince the legislators from Baltimore City and from other places that they should vote for it.
Those Baltimore City lawmakers facing questions from me today, asking if they support the legislation and details for specific bills targeting the violence. Those questions largely going unanswered. Senator Corey McCray does say he has a plan for better law enforcement coordination bills and a way to bring more accountability to parole and probation. Despite an unsuccessful track record and facing his final legislative session,
I don't know that the steps that we're taking are going to be able to change that, but not doing anything and not taking every step that we can would be a terrible mistake.
The governor says he can't not try to save lives in cities like Baltimore and communities all across Maryland. Now, just last month, I asked Baltimore City Mayor Brandon Scott if he supported these 2 pieces of legislation. The mayor telling me he didn't want to have a comment until he read through those plans. But again, remember that these pieces of legislation have gone through the legislature here in Annapolis year after year, and the goal from the governor has yet to change. Wednesday, the session kicks off at noon, and we'll be following these plans as well as other plans from Baltimore City delegation as they happen. Live in Annapolis, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.